Water supplies had no doubt been running low for days, and each family had been rationing their water supply. But by this time, they reached Rephidim. They obviously had run completely out of water. And how many of you know that's when the trouble started? Yeah, that's when the trouble started. Then they heard the most frightening words imaginable, that no water was in sight and that the creeks are dry. They were in the midst of a crisis, the most severe crisis that a people could face out, the dry, barren desert with no water. It was a matter of life and death, of survival. So what were they to do? What could they do? And we must note that it was the Lord himself who had led them to the camp of Rephidim. And it wasn't Moses, it was the Lord himself. The Lord had led them there by a pillar of cloud, by his very own presence. And so the question became, why would the Lord lead them to a place where there was no water? And the answer lies in the name of the Lord. The Lord is Jehovah Yahweh, which means that the God of revelation and deliverance. And you see, the Lord was obviously planning to reveal himself at Rephidim. How many of you know that it's when we get low in life? How many of you know it's when the trials are there and they're running rampant in our life? How many of you know that sometimes God has to break us in order to make us? Sometimes he has to pull us down in order to lift us up. And so what happened is God had to bring them to Rephidim to reveal that he is the God of salvation and deliverance. In other words, if Moses had made it happen, it would have been a discredit to God. But anybody had anything in their life when God had to do the fixing, God had to do the breaking, God had to do the molding. And when you look back over your life, mothers, you realize it was nobody but God that brought you out. Oh, yes. So I just believe that God desired to test his people at Rephidim, to test and strengthen their faith, to teach them to trust him more and more, to trust him to take care of them and their needs more and more. Mother Ford, he was obviously planning to glorify himself at Rephidim and to prove that he is truly God, the God who saves, the God who delivers his people through all of the trials and problems of life. What a faith legacy the Israelites could have had they only believed. Problem why we stay in our fix is that we don't have any faith. We don't believe that God is the source of our supply. We don't believe that God is a healer. The reason why you're still sick is you don't believe that God can heal you. Oh, help me somebody. The reason why you're still in a financial bind is because you're still looking for a check in the mail, or you're still looking for a job. Don't you know that a cattle on 1,000 hills belongs to God, and the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, and God will take care of you. Oh, yes. The children of Israel, they could have had more if they only believed. And instead of leaving a legacy of faith, they left a legacy of murmuring and conflict. Oh, yes, we read of their lack of faith time and time again. And their boldness to question God and his appointed leadership. Don't you know you better stop questioning God? Oh, yes, we can't question God. And this very same spirit of the children of Israel is in the hearts and minds of many of the today saints. Oh, yeah. They question God. They question his word. They question his leadership. And let me tell you something, when you start questioning and doubting God, there's consequences for it. And as a result, they were suffering consequence because they doubted God and because they doubted leadership. That's why they were wandering in the wilderness in the first place.
Come on, preacher.
But what causes the trials and the problems in our lives that motivate us to question God? If we're honest, we must confess that we are often the cause. We are, not God. In many instances, we are often the cause of our trials and tribulations. It is we who act foolishly and abuse our bodies. It is we who break the law and get in trouble. It is we who mistreat others. It is we who act irresponsible. It is we who misbehave. It is we who fail to take care of things. And the list could go on and on and on. But sometimes trials and tribulations are beyond our control, and trials that we did absolutely nothing to cause. And often time God is the architect of the problem. I just believe that God will send a problem to you just to get your attention. Let me just stop for a minute. When the tragedy took place in 2001, it was easy to blame Al-Qaeda. It was easy to blame Osama bin Laden. Some blame President Clinton, who was out of office. Others blame President Bush, who was in office. But let me tell you something. It's okay to point the finger at all those men, and perhaps some of the actions they did led to it. But that was not the president's fault, what happened in Louisiana. That was not the president's fault what happened in Haiti. That was not the president's fault what happened in Chile. That was not the president's fault. I just read that a volcano. So let me tell you something. Sometimes God will send a trial and a tribulation your way. Oh yes, how many of you know that he puts us in situations that really try us? He'll put us in situations that will challenge our spirit. Why? Because God uses trials to test us. God uses trials to prove us. He uses trials to strengthen us, trials to arouse us, because God wants us to thirst for him. Oh yes, and so mothers, this should be our faith legacy. That in the time of sorrow, we cried out to God. That in the time of disappointment, we learned to trust God more. In the time of a challenge, we took a stand for the Lord, and he made us strong. That in the time of a tribulation, we rooted ourselves in our testimony and in our witness for him. That in the time of weakness, we drew closer to him in prayer. We grew closer to him in trust. We grew closer to him in fellowship and communion. That in the end, when this life's journey is over, our faith legacy will be that we were tried by God. Oh, the songwriter said, please be patient with me. God is not through with me yet. I have to go through some things. I have to go through some trials, and I have to go through some tribulations. But be patient with me, because when God gets through with me, I shall come forth as pure gold. Oh yes, 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 yes. We should do as Romans 5 says. Romans 5 says that we glory in tribulation, because tribulation worketh patience.